Welcome back to Clash of Culture. As we've entered the 2023 season, we're going to talk about the early weeks and what teams may or may not need to hit the panic button. But before we get to football, like always, we want to thank you guys for all the love and support. So if you've made it this far in the video, please press the like and subscribe button. Have a bunch of things coming up, really close to 1,000 subscribers. And at 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be giving away a signed Heisman jersey. The pick'em is still going on. I think most people can't get in, but if you're in, please get your picks in, and just a lot of stuff going on. So please continue to support and give love to the channel. But with that being said, Steven, what's your thoughts on these early teams, the early results, and what teams may need to hit the panic button?
So I do have a list of some teams. We obviously could, go through 50 teams if we wanted to. We're not trying to have this video, be an hour long. So we're just going to go through like some of the key ones, kind of see where you think their fan base and their team, how they should feel like panic wise. So for viewers out there, how we're going to do this is we're going to do a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 being you shouldn't be concerned at all if you're a fan or if you're a player,
Right.
coach, whatever. 10 being it's an absolute dumpster fire, and some serious changes have to be made. Okay, so number 1, the first team we're going to talk about is LSU. How do you feel about LSU? If you were a fan or a team of that, like a part of that team, 1 to 10, where is your panic meter right now?
10 is the highest, right?
10 is like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. 1 is like, we're going to be fine. That's happening.
If I'm LSU, I'm going to say 2. I think we all felt that the FSU game could have went either way. They did look bad in that game. So that is why I went from probably 0 or 1 to 2. But I think we thought that they could drop that game. However, I think if they drop a game in the SEC West, that will be much more concerning. So the fact that they still don't have an in-conference loss, and they still have a very clear path to the college football playoff, gives a lot of reason for optimism. I don't think they have a reason right now to press the panic button just based off of being 1-1 with a loss to FSU. What's
Yeah,
your thoughts?
so I think it's about a 2 as well, 2 or 3 as well. I don't think they should be panicking. Obviously, they lost to Florida State. I think it's more so the fashion they lost, 45 to
Yeah.
21 or 45 to 24. But like you said, they still control their own destiny. You still play Alabama. You still play Florida A&M. So I mean, if you can reel off 11 straight wins, because they already beat Grambling, if you can win 11 straight games and win the SEC, then you're in, regardless if you lost that game by 21. It's not going to matter. They're going to forget about that real quick, the committee-wise. So I don't think LSU needs to panic by any means. I still think they're a complete team. So I would say a 2 or 3. But the next team, we're going to stay in the SEC. We're going to talk about Alabama. So I'm going to give mine first.
Yeah.
I would say mine's about a 5. The reason being, I think it was very low for me before, but I think losing by 10 to Texas at home, and with how poorly Jalen Milroe played, his decision-making was terrible, threw 2 bad interceptions that were pretty much identical. I think a lot is going to come back up with the whole quarterback battle, because now I know why Nick Saban took so long to pick a quarterback, because if that's the kind of quarterback play he was seeing all offseason,
Yeah.
I guess he just went
I
with
feel
the
like I've
most
been saying
athletic. Yeah, he went with just the most athletic player. So I would say that for them is about a 5. Alabama fans may feel like, oh, I'm not concerned because they're in the same situation as LSU. Well, we still control our own destiny. We still play LSU and Tennessee, and then Ole Miss. So really, if they win out, it's not going to matter for them either. But I think LSU looking poor against Florida State, losing by 21. I personally feel like Alabama looked worse against Texas than Florida State looked against LSU. I'm sorry, than LSU looked against Florida State. I think even though LSU lost bigger, I think in that game itself, the game just didn't feel like more of a blowout or more of like it was out of Alabama, like more than Alabama. Because for one, Alabama lost at home by 10, and I never really felt like in that game Alabama had control of the game. And you can say the same thing for LSU, but I don't know. There's just something about that game and the way it played. I'm concerned for the LSU matchup. I'm concerned for the Tennessee matchup, even the Ole Miss matchup, to be honest. So I think a lot of these games are going to be closer than what we expect, but I would say a 5 for Alabama.
Let me see. So I'll say you kind of changed my mind because I would have said 2 as well. But you brought up some very interesting points. And one of the big points there is that Alabama lost at home by double digits at home. But I'm going to still go a little bit lower than you. I'm going to say a 3. And part of that is still that, like you said, they control their destiny. If they can figure out this quarterback situation, whether that be Milrow getting better or one of the backups coming in and playing better, I think Alabama's still a talented team. They, like I said, controls their own destiny. As long as they continue to win out, if they can win the SEC West, I don't think it's time to hit the panic button now. I will say that may change. One loss in the SEC West, and we may be at an 8 or 9.
Alrighty, and the last SEC team we're going to talk about is Texas A&M. So I'm going to let you go first. How do you feel? I mean, they just lost to Miami by 15. So where would you be at 1 to 10?
Yes, so I'm going to be much higher, and because I also didn't believe that Texas A&M was a national championship contender. Right? I think we just talked about two teams that I think are still going to be in the national championship picture. My concern for Texas A&M is after week 1, they started to get some pub. Jimbo Fisher has been on the hot seat. They have not looked how we suspected they should look with one paying Jimbo Fisher what they're paying and bringing in the recruits that they have. And to me, this game was indicative of the issues that we've seen so far with Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher. So this is just more of the same. In a year where you expected, where you needed to see something different, we're seeing more of the same. So my concern for them is high. Like I said, I think this is a down year again for Texas A&M. I think they're fighting for 7-5, 6-6, and I think this is almost proof in that. Right? I don't think this Miami team is as good as some of the other better teams that they're going to play, especially in the SEC West. I don't think they're as good as they may be getting credit for right now. I think Texas A&M is not as good as we may have believed after week 1.
You never gave your rating.
Oh yeah, so I'm at a 7.
Okay, I'm at an 8. I think obviously I was very high on them this year. I thought they were going to bounce back, but I think this was a must-win game. They didn't look terrible, but when you lose to Miami and you still have to play Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and LSU, I don't see you going 5-1 or 4-2 in those games. So I mean, I think this is a 7-5, 8-4 type team, and that's like best case scenario at this point. So I would say 8-4 is best case. 7-5 is not best case. I think 8-4 is worst case, like 5-7. But yeah, I would say an 8, and I think unless Jimbo finds a miracle here, I don't think he's going to be the coach of Texas A&M next season. It's kind of weird to say though. I just think them losing this game was like the end of it to me. Like, because Miami to me is like the 4th or 5th best team on this
Right.
schedule. So if you're
Right.
losing to Miami by double digits, I can't imagine what Tennessee and Alabama and LSU is going to do to you.
And this goes back to what you said. Right? I think, and this sounds crazy, but I think the way you lose means something. Right? There are losses where you just say, that was a bad bounce. But like you said, hey, maybe we were controlling the game. Not Miami. Texas A&M was dominated in this game. Right? This game was a game where they never had control of that game, where Miami looked like the much better team. And again, to that point, I don't think Miami is better than a number of the teams that you listed that Texas A&M has on their schedule. So if this was a bad bounce game or something, just this player just had butterfingers, the old Tony syndrome, you probably chalk that up and you say, next week they'll bounce back. Miami dominated them and looked like a much better team. And I think that the rest of the teams on the Texas A&M schedule look like they're better than Miami.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about our 2 favorite teams. And then there's one more team I want to talk about at the end. But we'll talk about Ohio State first. Obviously, they're 2-0. I'll give mine first. I would say mine is at a 2 for them. I don't think if you're an Ohio State fan, obviously you're going to speak after me, but you should panic. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, early in the year, there's a little bit of struggle, some growing pains, but at the end of the day, they're getting the job done. They're 2-0. People can make what they want to say about, not getting Marvin Harrison and Igbokwe the ball, whatever the case may be. They're winning games. Obviously, Kyle McCord hasn't looked like C.J. Stroud, but, I mean, not many quarterbacks are going to look like C.J. Stroud. So you guys are comparing a player to a different player that's not even in college football anymore. And you're comparing one team to a team of itself from a few years ago. So I just think that's stupid. I think Ohio State is still a top 10 team. Still think they're a playoff team. We'll be able to find out next week in 8 days or 9 days how good they actually are against Notre Dame. which is going to be a really good matchup. A lot of good games that weekend. But I have them at a 2. I don't think there's any reason to panic if you're an Ohio State fan.
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit higher. I'm going to say a 4, which is probably down from like a 7 after week 1. I think you've seen the maturation of Kyle McCord. He looked a little bit better. I think, just like you said, I will have a better idea of what this season entails in 8 days. Obviously, there are 3 games that Ohio State fans have circled. And I think our concern is based off how we looked these first 2 weeks. I don't think that we look better than Notre Dame, Penn State, or Michigan so far this season. But I saw enough in week 2 to show optimism, to show that, hey, maybe Kyle McCord, and if you guys don't know, Kyle McCord has been named the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. Maybe Kyle McCord can be a positive in the passing game. He got the ball to Marvin Harrison a little bit more, and Buka had a better game in week 2. Obviously, the competition was a little bit different, but for him, I think it's all about confidence. So that brought me down to a 4. Still a high level of concern, like I said, because for us to clear that hurdle, we still would have to beat some very good teams. But we'll see more, and we'll know more in 8 days.
All right, so the next team we're going to talk about is my favorite team, Clemson. I'm going to let you go first since I went first with Ohio State. So what is your panic meter on Clemson right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna also say about a 4. Again, as we mentioned with some of the other teams, Clemson I think still holds cards in their hand. My concern for Clemson is how far they drop. Really out of the top 25. If again coming off of week 1, I probably would have been at an 8 or 9. Coming off of the first half of week 2, I probably would have stayed at that 8 or 9. But the fact that they were able to get it together and look like the Clemson that we suspect and expect them to look like, I think probably brought that down for me to about a 4 as well. Again, this is another team that we're going to know more in 8 days. If Florida State rolls into Death Valley and rolls up Clemson, again, I'm probably at a 10. I'm probably saying Clemson season is done. So I'm going to hold out being pessimistic until we see how they look in that Florida State game.
Yeah, I'm going to say a 5. I am right in the middle on Clemson right now.
Okay.
I would say a fair judgment on them is going to come next week. I'm in week 4. But I would say this, even if Clemson were to lose that game by a touchdown, I don't think personally I'm like, oh my God, the Clemson reign is over. I personally think they're going to win. And I think when you look at a
but
team.
I would, but you say that. I would say that's a bad omen for this season because that's 2 ACC losses.
Yeah, I agree. But I still think, we've lost, in the ACC twice before. We still went 10-3 or 10-4, 11-4, whatever, 11-3. So I think I'll be able to say I'm at an 8, 9, or 10 if the streak of 10-win season snaps. Right now we're at 12 straight 10-win seasons. We lost to Duke. There's been seasons where we lost to Syracuse. We've lost to Pitt. This isn't the first time where we lost to a team that we weren't supposed to lose to. And we've lost to those teams when we had, Trevor Lawrence. I don't think we lost to one of those teams with Deshaun Watson, but I know with Trevor Lawrence for sure we lost to Pitt, or we lost to like a Syracuse. It was one of those games. But when you look at that, I think everybody's hitting the panic button early because obviously it was a 28-7 game. But those of you guys who watched the game, the score was not indicative of how the game went. Because what will end up happening is if Clemson finds a way to beat Florida State and Notre Dame, then the bandwagon's going to be full again. And it's going to be, well, Clemson's the ACC favorite and they have a chance to control their own destiny. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm not going to put it past Clemson. And that's why I'm at a 5. I'm super uneasy because we very well could lose to North Carolina, Florida State and Notre Dame and finish 8-4 in the regular season. Then I'm like, yeah, it's a 10. But we could also finish 11-1. And I wouldn't be surprised because I've come to notice how good Clemson is and how good the program is. We have the talent for that. It's just, can we produce? So I'm at a 5 for now for my team. But the last team, this might be a shock to you to talk about them because they are 2-0, but they're coming off of a game where it was a very close game. Obviously, I was excited with the ending, but that's Oregon. What is your panic meter on Oregon? The reason why I ask you this, they beat Portland State by 70 or something, but Texas Tech, they were down by like 11 or 12 with like 5 minutes left in the game, and then they were up 1, and Texas Tech was driving. This is against a Texas Tech team who lost a very bad loss in week 1. So when you look at Oregon and the games that they're going to have to play later in the year against the powerhouses in the Pac-12, what is your kind of panic meter on them. Not to say, they're going to completely fall apart, but as far as playoff hope and winning the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually put this probably a little bit higher than suspected. And again, remember, I'm a guy who picks Oregon to be in the playoffs and pick them to win the Pac-12. I'm gonna put this at a 5, and I'm gonna put this at a 5 because I'm not necessarily because of the close game against Texas Tech, but how I've seen some of these other teams look, USC and Washington. I would say so far both of them teams have looked better. And if I had to redo all my predictions right now, I'd probably pick Washington to win the Pac-12 and beat Oregon. So yeah, again, obviously, I thought even in that game, Oregon seemed to. I felt as I watched that game that Oregon was going to win, but Oregon didn't look great. And in the high-powered Pac-12, with as many good teams as we've talked about, and again, we now have to consider Colorado a pretty good team as well. You can't have bad weeks. You're not going to be able to survive bad weeks. So I'm going to put it at a 5, but I'm also going to put that as an incomplete because I need to see a little bit more from Oregon. I need to see them this week and the next week to give a better answer. But right now, I'm going to say a 5. And like I said, I base that off the fact that the Pac-12 is so good.
Yeah, they were, like I said, they were down 27-18, so down by 9, starting the fourth quarter. And then they were down at the 8-minute mark, up by 1. And then obviously Texas Tech went and scored. And then they were able to kind of get the job done at the end. I just think I'm probably at like a 4 for them. I don't think it's and let me caveat that by saying this. The panic meter for Oregon is not the same panic meter for Clemson, because Clemson's panic meter is we might go 7-5 this year. Oregon's is we might go 10-2 and miss the playoffs. So 2 different panic meters, but it's still a panic meter in the sense that Oregon has playoff aspirations. They're 2-0. And, coming off of a game against Texas Tech, who, like I said, had previously lost to Wyoming in double overtime, Texas Tech shouldn't have been able to keep up with Oregon's offense. And we thought Oregon's defense was, going to be able to hold them under, 30 points is a lot of points to score against Oregon, especially when, like I said, against Wyoming, they only put up 35. So it's kind of tough for me, but I'm going to say I'm at a 4 for Oregon. I still think they have a chance to make the playoff and a chance to win the Pac-12. But there's been so many good teams in the Pac-12. Obviously, Colorado has surprised us. Oregon State has surprised us. You still have Utah. You have USC. You have Washington. You have UCLA now, who just cracked the top 25. So there's a lot of good teams in the Pac-12. And then you still have the likes of Washington State, who just cracked the top 25. Arizona.
Arizona could beat you, yeah.
So there's a lot of teams out west this year who Oregon is going to have to slow down offenses because, again, if you're giving up 30 points to Texas Tech, I can probably name 5 offenses in the Pac-12 that are better than Texas Tech that they're going to struggle with if that's the case. So I would say there are 4 for me. Next week they play Colorado at home the same day as the Notre Dame, Ohio State, Florida State, Clemson. Week 4 is absolutely loaded. So we're going to find out a lot about both of those teams. Oregon opened up as a 14-point favorite against Colorado. That's actually it's in Oregon too. That's a weird line to me. Yeah, that's a weird line because you would think that would open up as more. Colorado's getting a lot of love. It's kind of crazy. But I think that's gonna
again.
I also think
has a big name.
Even though Clemson, Florida State, and Ohio State, Notre Dame play that day, I bet you this is gonna be the most watched game. Colorado, Oregon.
You think so?
I think, and it's at 12:30. I wonder. Sorry guys, I'm just pulling up the schedule really quick. I just want to see what other games are on, like the times, because I know Clemson plays.
That's the Clemson Florida State game, right?
9 a.m. West Coast time.
So, sorry. Okay.
So 12 Eastern.
So that's 3:30 Eastern.
So Clemson plays at 12 Eastern, and then Alabama, Ole Miss at 3:30, Oregon, Colorado at 3:30, Ohio State, Notre Dame is at 7:30. So the only game with Colorado, Oregon is Alabama, Ole Miss.
So where do you think game day goes? Do you think it's still Ohio State, Notre Dame?
They're not going to go to Colorado back-to-back weeks. So
you're right.
Yeah, so it's going to be between Alabama, Ole Miss, and you guys. And why would they pick that game when you have a top 10 matchup?
They may go Clemson, Florida State.
It's a 9 a.m. game. They're not going to go there.
Okay. I mean, they've done 9 a.m. games before.
9 a.m. Pacific. I don't know. I feel like it makes the most sense to do a top 10 game with Ohio State and Notre Dame. You have Clemson playing Notre Dame later in the year. I mean, Clemson's not even ranked at this point, so I would be
Yeah.
highly surprised if they chose Clemson. I'd be happy, but I'd rather them choose the Clemson game when we go to it. If
Yeah.
game day comes, that I'm telling you, that's gonna be
We got to go
crazy.
get it. We got to get out there early.
Hey, remember, before we head out, remember we do have the bet, A&M Tennessee, that if Tennessee doesn't cover the spread, you got to buy me a Clemson thing, and
Who
if they
made
do,
this bet?
bro, are you kidding me right now? You want me to go pull up the video? It's in the A&M Texas preview. We
Okay,
bet.
wait a minute. What's the bet again?
The bet is if Texas A&M, which I believe it's the line probably changed, so we're gonna go off the line in that video. I think the line was a touchdown. So the
Okay.
line it's on October 14th. If A&M loses by 6 or less or wins, you have to buy me apparel of my choice at the Clemson game. If
Okay.
Tennessee covers and wins by a touchdown or more, I got to put my son in the Ohio State uniform or Ohio
Oh
State
yeah, I
gear,
like this
Ohio
bet.
State
I
gear,
like
and
this.
then
I need
send it
them
to you.
decked out too.
All right, so that's
I
gonna be
need the
the
hat. Let me get him some
shut
shoes.
up.
Let me send my grandbaby some Ohio State shoes.
So that's the bet, and that one's on October 14th. So we still have a long time to
I
go,
like
but
that.
obviously not looking good on my side with Texas A&M and their loss.
That's a good bet.
But that's gonna wrap it
I'm
up
glad you
for
reminded
our.
me.
Shut up. Well, I had to remind you because if they would have won and then we would have got to Clemson, you'd be like, bro, I'm not buying you nothing, bro. We didn't make that bet. Then I would have to pull the receipts. But that's gonna wrap it up for our panic button here on Clash of Cultures. Just kind of testing to see where my dad and I think these teams, fan bases, and teams should kind of see where their destiny lies. Let us know in the comment section what you guys feel about these teams or any other teams that you guys think that need to hit the panic button. But we will see you guys tomorrow at the live show, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. West Coast time. Ooh, sorry, I had to get that one out. 6 p.m. West Coast time, where we preview all of Week 3's games. It's going to be fun. Make
Yeah.
sure you guys don't miss it. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. We will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.
Peace out.